لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.
الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه وعلى عفوه بعد قدرته، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأنذر عشيرتك الأقربين. صدق الله العظيم. Respected viewers, welcome back to our program, A Perfect Example, where we study the life and the example of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's choicest blessings be upon our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam and upon those who follow him in righteousness and goodness. And may we, through the means of following our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in every one of our endeavors in both worlds. In our last program, we looked upon the people who initially accepted Islam. And we continue in the same vein, that amongst the people who accepted Islam first, as we had made mention, was first amongst the females, Hazrat Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, first amongst the slaves, Zayd ibn Haritha, first amongst the young people, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, first amongst the matured adults, and an extraordinary situation because the first amongst the independent people outside the family, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and we took the name of some of the initial Muslims. In a similar manner, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu thereafter went to significant people to accept Islam. And amongst them to accept Islam at the hands of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was Uthman ibn Affan. Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's Islam is also very amazing. He said, I was once in my house. When I came into the house, when my mother's sister, my khala, and her name was Su'ada, and she started composing certain poetry, directing it towards me. She was an intelligent woman, and it's also said that she, in some way, she used to tell people before Islam about the future. So when she said Uthman radiallahu anhu, she had a lot of love for Uthman radiallahu anhu. So she composed these beautiful Arabic poems. I'm not a very great expert in Arabic poetry or in Arabic poems, but let me read out what she had said. And she said, أبشروا وحييت ثلاثا وترا ثم ثلاثا وثلاثا أخرى. Congratulations and glad tidings be to you, O Uthman. Thrice, and thrice again. ثم بأخرى لكي تتم عشرة لقيت خيرا ووقيت شرا. And let me add one more times congratulations to complete 10. 3 times 3 plus 1. To complete, congratulations be upon you 10 times. On what basis? You are fortunate to acquire good, and you are privileged to be protected from evil. نكحت والله حسانا زهرا وأنت بكر ولقيت بكرا. You, through the means of what I have come to know, you will get married to an extremely, blessed woman. You would be single. She would also be a virgin, and she would also be a virgin. Uthman, ya Uthman, ya Uthman. O Uthman, O Uthman, O Uthman. Lakal jamalu wa lakashan. You have beauty and elegance. And what a great rank and honor Allah Ta'ala is going to bestow upon you. He heard this poetry. He didn't know what she was referring to. So when he went one day to Abu Bakr, he was a very close friend to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So when he went to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, narrated what his khala, his maternal aunt had said. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu took it as a unique opportunity to invite him to Islam. And he was amongst those who accepted Islam in the beginning at the encouragement of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. In fact, it is said, while he was speaking to Abu Bakr, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam came past, and Uthman radiallahu anhu was also amongst Sabiqun al-Awwalun, amongst the first people to accept Islam. Also amongst the people to accept Islam was Ja'far bin Abi Talib. Ja'far bin Abi Talib also saw his brother Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, reading the salat, and one day he joined him, and he also accepted Islam without telling his father. And one day his father Abu Talib saw him reading salat with Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he encouraged him to continue. This is also amazing. Abu Talib encouraging his sons to continue listening to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, while he himself, according to the view of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat, did not accept Islam. And amongst the first people to accept Islam was also Abu Zar Ghafari radiyallahu ta'ala. Abu Zar Ghafari radiyallahu ta'ala sent his brother, I think his name was Unais, to go and see what Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was teaching. He came to hear about that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has made his appearance in Makkah Mukarramah, and because of that he had proclaimed prophethood. So he sent his brother, go and see what is the reality of this prophet. What is his situation? And his brother went, he came into Makkah, tried to find out more, and everyone told him that this person, Aliyadu Billah, is a soothsayer. He is a person who is bringing magic, he is differentiating and turning people away from their former religion. And he is a poet, he is like this and he is like that. So the brother of Abu Zar Ghafari radiallahu anhu went to go and listen to him. But he said he was so taken aback by what he was saying, he realized that this is not a poet, this is someone beyond a poet, and he was impressed with Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but not to the extent that he could give even anything further to his brother Abu Zar Ghafari when he went back. So Abu Zar Ghafari radiallahu anhu, when he heard his brother, he said, my brother said, they are saying that he is a poet, they are saying he is like this, I don't see him to be like that. But Abu Zar Ghafari radiallahu anhu, there was a yearning for truth in his heart. But he himself was not happy with what his brother had said. So he himself came to Makkah Mukarramah. He looked around for Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to be in seclusion for much of the time. So he asked Ali radiallahu anhu one day, who saw him as someone not a local person of Makkah, brought him in the presence of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he accepted Islam. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him, you have accepted Islam, the time is not right for you to go and proclaim Islam. The time is not right for you to reveal your Islam. You go back to your tribe. Go and silently bring them towards Islam. And when the time is right, then when Islam is dominant, I want you to come back. But Iman is also a very amazing thing. Viewers, Iman is very amazing. Sometimes you can accept what is said, that keep it hidden, keep it in such a way that it is not made mention. But sometimes some people's Iman, although for Abu Zar Ghafari, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's command, it was permissible for him to do so. But Abu Zar Ghafari radiallahu anhu, he could not bear this aspect of me keeping Islam secluded and keeping it to myself in secret. So he went into the haram and he told people, oh people, I have accepted Islam. I bear witness there is no one worthy of worship besides Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger of Allah. And then when the people heard him, they tore into him. They started beating him. He was on the verge of death. Had it not been for Abbas radiallahu anhu, the uncle of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I would have said, oh people, who are you killing? He is from the Ghaffar tribe. We have to pass this tribe when we go for our trade journeys. If you kill him, you will make it difficult for us to conduct our trade journeys. And he prevented him from being beaten to death, all on the basis of his yearning to proclaim his Islam to one and all. Subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase him in rank and elevate his status even further. Hamza, the uncle of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, was also amongst those who accepted Islam at that time. His coming to Islam is also a very interesting incident. He was one day, Abu Jahl, started abusing Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the extent that he used very abusive language to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When he used abusive language to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam remained silent and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam walked away. There was a slave woman, the slave woman of Abdullah bin Jud'an, who heard Abu Jahl abusing Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Hamza was gone for hunting, and Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, when he came back, she rushed towards him and said, do you know what happened to you, to your nephew today? You are his uncle. Don't you have any ghairat? Don't you have any shame? Don't you have any sense of protection over your nephew? Said, what happened? He said, Abu Jahl, the leader of Makkah today, abused your nephew in such and such a way, using the most abusive type of language. Hamza radiallahu anhu could not bear it. He went into the gathering of the leaders of the Quraysh, and he took his bow and arrow and he struck Abu Jahl on the head. Such was his fury, such was his anger, such was his strength, that no one could even come in front of him. Hamza was a very famous warrior, and in his exploits in the battle of Badr and Uhud will be later on mentioned. But he was a very, very, very courageous person. So no one did anything. And when they wanted to do anything, Abu Jahl said, don't touch him, leave him. I was abusive towards his nephew. And then when he came and told Nabi Karim Sallallahu that, Nabi Karim Sallallahu said, you did good, but accept my message. So Hamza went and he slept over it. But during the course of the night, he was very restless. And he said there was a yearning for the truth that was in my heart and mind. And I could not sleep properly. So the next morning, I went into the haram and I made dua to Almighty Allah. Oh Allah, guide me upon the truth. Oh Allah, guide me upon that which is right. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam was awaiting Hamza. And Hamza radiallahu anhu, after this dua, his inclination was towards Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he approached Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he accepted Islam. All along while this was happening, bear in mind that Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam was proclaiming Islam, preaching Islam, but it was done all the time, mostly in silence. It was not done openly. Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam met people individually and he invited them to Islam. And these were some of the people whom we have narrated, whom we have mentioned, who were the fortunate people who accepted Islam in the initial stages of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam's prophethood. Respected viewers, welcome back once again to the program. Just before the break, we looked upon the people who initially accepted Islam. We also said initially, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to preach Islam in secret. Until after 3 years of preaching Islam secretly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded our beloved Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and be a plain warner for your close family members who are worshipping idols. وَقُلْ إِنِّي أَنَا النَّذِيرُ مُبِينٌ. Tell unto the people, O Prophet of Almighty Allah, tell unto the people, I am a clear warner to you from Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the consequences of worshipping idols and following falsehood and following things that are not correct. So Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam then started making the means to call his close family members. Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam one day told Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, O Ali, call the prominent members of the family. There were 40 of them who gathered. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam had prepared a meal. So you see Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam preparing a meal, and Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam called them over the meal, hoping that he would be able to present Islam to them after the meal. So sometimes, it is also amongst the akhlaq that when we want to call someone towards the truth, we also have good akhlaq and we have good manners and character towards them. After all, it is character many a times that changes perceptions of people. And there are many situations like that. We find our brothers in Jamaat, they also normally would also call people, for da'wat, for a meal, and then give them good advice. So Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam called people, and when he called people, now talking about the brothers in Jamaat, there is one incident that comes to mind, a slightly humorous incident. The Jamaat went out in a particular place, in a locality. So they had to cook meal. Maybe there were people there who could not, for some reason, not be able to host them. So they started cooking a meal and they started saying, let us distribute the responsibility amongst people. So each and everyone took up a particular responsibility. One person did not take up any responsibility. Whenever any responsibility was placed before him, he said, I can't do it. He said, go to the marketplaces or go to the supermarket to buy something. I don't do it at home. How can I do it here? Why don't you learn to cut some of the tomatoes or onions that is used to cook? I can't do it. If I do it, maybe I will slice my own hand instead of slicing the tomato or the onion. And then he said, put up the table, put up the cloth, tablecloth. He said, I can't do it. I don't know what to do. I will make a mistake. So when everything was ready, he was called upon and he said, now why don't you come and partake of the meals? So he replied, he said, Kitlu wakat na kiya. How many times must I say no? Come, let me join you. Now I will say yes. Nevertheless, that's not the way that we are supposed to do. We are supposed to be at all times, ready to participate in all good works and ready to participate in serving people. On one occasion, Sahaba Ikram Ridwanullahi Ta'ala Ajma'in went for a journey. And in that journey, they stopped at a place and each and everyone took up a responsibility. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I will take the responsibility of bringing the firewood. I will go and bring the wood to light up the fire, to be able to bring warmth and to be able to cook for the entire expedition. Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, no, you don't need to do it, we will do it. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I know you would like to do it, but I would not like to be apart from people and just be ready to be served and ready to be waited upon without playing my role. Nevertheless, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam calls the people. And when Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam calls the people, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prepares food. As they are eating, there is very little milk, but that milk is sufficient for the entire gathering of 40 people. And at that particular time, Abu Lahab, for some reason, started building all the time hostility towards Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When he saw this, he said, oh people, better flee away from here. Better flee away from here. The reason for fleeing away from here is, Aliyadu Billah, Muhammad, my nephew has done magic upon you. He has done jadoo upon you. Look at the little milk that has been sufficient for such a great amount of people. And he disturbed the gathering without Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam being able to explain the beauty of Islam, being able to explain the oneness of Almighty Allah, as Allah Ta'ala had commanded him after 3 years of secrecy and secretly propagating, told him now to openly propagate. So he disturbed the entire gathering. There was another occasion when Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called them, and again at that time he was rather rude and abusive, until one day Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam decided to call the people of Makkah. And what Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stood on the Mount of Safa, and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam started waving a white flag. Now what actually happened was that in that time, whenever someone wanted to say anything very important, wanted to draw the attention of people towards something that is of extreme importance, then he used to stand up in the mountain, wave a white flag. And when a white flag was waved, it was as if this is a very important announcement to make. So people used to come and flock at the foot of that mountain to listen to what is the emergency and what is the important announcement to be made. So Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam waved a white flag, and then when everyone came and everyone was gathered, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam addressed them and he said, O people of Makkah, Hal ra'aytumuni sadiqan am kadhiba? I have stayed so many years in your presence. Have you found me to be truthful, a man of honesty, a man of integrity or otherwise? I would not be bold enough to say and translate the exact Arabic words, because that might translate into something inappropriate with regard to our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Arabic word, I am forced to say it because it is part of the historical narrations. But he said, have you found me to be honest, a man of integrity, truthful or otherwise? And everyone said in unison, O Muhammad, whenever we experienced or we had any transaction or we had any interaction with you, we always found you to be truthful and honest. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then drew them towards another aspect and said, if I were to tell you that there is an army behind this mountain, Mount of Safa at that time, today we don't see the height of it, maybe at that time it was much more higher than what it is presently. So he said, if I were to tell you that there is an army behind the mountain, which you cannot see, would you believe me or not? They said, if you were to tell us it is so, we would accept what you are saying, because you have never ever spoken lies. You have always been truthful. Respected viewers, it is something for us to consider. It is something for us to really ponder over, that before you go and establish your credentials as a person of faith, or calling people towards faith, or calling people towards Islam, you must establish your credentials as a man of honor, as a man of integrity, as a man of truthfulness. People will never ever be impressed by a person who is not truthful in his speech. They will never ever be impressed by someone who is not honest, who is not a man of integrity. If you have to invite them towards truthfulness, they will say, you yourself are not true. You yourself is not a man of integrity and honesty. What are you inviting us towards? So Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam established his credentials as a man of honesty, as an upright person, as a man of truth. And then when he established them, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, O people of Makkah, I warn you of the consequences of worshipping idols and turning away from the one Allah. I call upon you to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no one worthy of worship besides Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Muhammad is a messenger of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I call upon you of dire consequences if you turn away from Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you continue worshipping idols, which is an antithesis of the oneness and the greatness of Almighty Allah. So when Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said this, Abu Lahab got up and he took a stone and he threw it in the direction of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam until he wounded and he bruised Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because the stone struck the shin of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he said, Tabbalak, Tabbalak, Aliyadu Billah, may you, Aliyadu Billah, Nakle Kufar, Kufar Nabashad. He said, Tabbalak, may you be destroyed, O Muhammad. May you be destroyed, O my nephew. Alihada Jama'atana, is this the reason why you have gathered us? Is this the reason why you had waved the white flag to say a matter of great importance? Is this the importance? May you be destroyed. Abu Lahab went away from there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Ghayyur Allah, the sensitive Allah, the sensitive creator of Muhammad, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, bore what he had to say. But the Ghayyur and the sensitive Allah and the creator of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam could not bear that abuse which Abu Lahab had sounded about Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse and the surah known as Surah Lahab. Tabbat yada abi lahabi wa tab, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then revealed the ayat, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. O Abu Lahab, not Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam be destroyed, may you be destroyed. Ma aghna anhu maluhu, you and your wealth will not be able to prevent you from destruction. Such abuse, such disrespect to our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this was the beginning of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam's openly proclaiming Islam. And when our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam started openly proclaiming Islam, this brought about great consternation, great amount of anxiety, great amount of concern to the people of Makkah. Because up till then, when it was done secretly, they turned a blind eye, so to speak. They did not do anything. They allowed it to carry on. But when our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam started openly proclaiming about Islam, started openly saying and telling people about Islam, then the people of Makkah also increased their hostility towards Islam, also increased their opposition to Islam. And inshallah, in our next program, we will look upon that hostility and the opposition of the people of Makkah and our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam steadfastness, and our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam remaining committed on his propagation of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the means of that grant us barakah and blessing, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also through the means of that bring in us the yearning to follow in the footsteps of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.